Good morning. This morning, the subject of discussion is money. So, UK, here we are in the UK, it's very expensive, just can't stay on top of monthly outgoings. You know, two people working in a family, decent salaries, etc. And the money is gone by, middle of the month kind of thing. And people are thinking, well, what's going on? Why is this happening? And of course, inflation has got a lot to do with it. So all that COVID money that was printed, that's basically working its way through the system. So no supply of goods because people were told they couldn't go to work, and an oversupply of cash to pay for the limited supply of goods, which means that the prices go up. So at some point, we're hoping that will come back down again. We'll get to a point where maybe we go into deflation, where prices start to fall. So that's the aim. But really, this has been happening for a long time, since the idea of a gold standard was abandoned. So probably back to when the Federal Reserve was founded. So that's just before the First World War. And yeah, it was designed to stop these kind of crises, but actually it's created more crises than it's solved. And fractional reserve banking, people having runs on the bank, that kind of thing, and the fact that we live in a debt-based monetary system where money comes into existence as debt. And in order for a system like that to survive, you need to keep creating more and more debt to pay off the interest on the debt, the existing debt, and you get an expansion of debt until essentially the whole thing collapses, and then you get a debt deflation. So when you pay off your loans, money disappears from the economy. So, people default on loans. It's basically like all that money just disappears, which is obviously not good, because the liquidity in the system drops. And this is why in these financial crises, central banks print more money. So they're trying to produce more liquidity. Well, actually, they're trying to save their mates, in banks and the like, Warren Buffett's of this world. So people are looking in and saying, well, this is a complete scam, isn't it? Or this idea that governments can print money, banks can create money out of nothing and just give it to people and say, well, pay me this back, this money that I just created out of nothing, pay it back to me with interest. And so that person, they bought a house or they started a business, they don't have the license to print money, so they then have to spend the next 30 years working to pay off the interest on the loan that they've taken. And it's a considerable amount of money. It's, say you've got a few £100,000 mortgage, you're going to be paying 100 grand or 150 grand in interest over that time frame. So you're kind of a debt slave, really, and you're borrowing money to purchase this thing. Of course, interest rates have been coming down since 1971. No, actually a bit later than that. Probably maybe the mid-70s. Paul Volcker, I think he raised interest rates to 15%, and then they've just basically been coming down ever since. And ever since that point, you've just had more and more money being created. So the debt has just increased and increased. And as the debt's increased, the money supply has increased. And I think it's about 97% of the money is digital money, created by banks. That money goes into the things that it's used to purchase, and it's real estate, really. So we've had a bull market in real estate since the 1970s, which is why your parents say always invest in bricks and mortar. So since they can remember, it's been a good investment. and it's been a hedge against inflation. Is the way to look at it. So a leveraged bet. So if you buy a house, you're hedging your leveraged hedge against the inflation of the money supply. But at some point, this has to turn around, and people have been waiting for 10, 15 years. It does look now like it's about to go pop, because the US government has passed the 130% debt to GDP ratio. So it's basically going into a death spiral where it can't pay that debt back. It's just impossible. I think they say that 90%, over 90% of countries that go into that situation end up either defaulting or inflating away the debts. So you get a kind of hyperinflationary situation. So what do we do as ordinary people? How do we protect ourselves from this complete craziness? Well, there are alternatives to this system, and they're called Bitcoin, gold, precious metals. You could say real estate, but I suspect that real estate prices will fall. You know, tangible things, commodities, stuff that takes energy to create. You can't just type a few buttons on a computer and conjure hundreds or millions of pounds into existence. You actually have to do the work, the proof of work. And I think in the coming 12 months, they would probably get a recession in the later part of 2024, so probably August, September onwards. And it'll be interesting to see what happens to Bitcoin, because it's such a liquid asset. You know, it trades 24/7, and there's obviously a limited amount of it, but it's digital money. It's the most liquid asset, and it will be interesting to see how it fares when people are getting margin called on their stockbroking accounts, and you know, they've got to raise money because I don't know, they've been laid off or whatever. They start selling off the family silver or the family Bitcoin. So I think the price will drop, but I think at some point the penny will drop as well for people, and they'll realise that they want to be in the stronger money, not the weaker one. So whether they would just leave their other things to go to zero and save the stuff that has value and has future, we'll see. But I suspect there'll be a drop, significant drop in the price. So let's say it goes up another, say, 40-50% to over 100,000. Then, you know, what are we expecting it to drop to? I don't know. Some people say it won't go below 50,000 ever again. I'm not so sure. I think it could drop extremely low. Remember, none of these digital assets, you know, Bitcoin was created in 2009. That was just after the last financial crisis. They've never had to go through a recession, a deflationary bust. So they've never been battle tested in that regard, and it will be interesting to see how they fare. But, you know, if you've got money, I should say, if you've got your effort and you get paid in money for that effort, would you rather it was sitting in dollars or pounds or euros, which are basically being inflated into oblivion, or would you rather save it in something that cannot be printed? And I think at this stage, a lot of people would say, no, I'll stick with the pounds, thanks, because the volatility of Bitcoin is too much to bear. But if they are true savings and you're going to put them away for 5 years minimum, then actually I think Bitcoin and the like are a better store of value. It's just the volatility is extremely brutal. Now, one way to get over that is to actually buy some and ride the volatility roller coaster until you can stomach these kind of things. But I accept it's not for everyone. So just a note really to people out there: you're not going crazy. Governments are corrupt. The system is rigged. You're right to be angry, and don't expect politicians to save you. They're just self-interested like everybody else. But consider opting out and choosing something that works for you, becoming your own bank. And Bitcoin is a way that you can do that. Lots to read up on, lots to listen to, plenty of good podcasts. Educate yourself to the scam of central banking, how it steals money from the poor and gives it to the rich, how governments use central banks to increase the state, especially in the UK. We have such a massive state. Everybody loves the state. I don't know why, but I think it was post-war, so the war efforts helped to increase the popularity of the state, and then it just grows and grows and grows. We're very socialist in the UK, and I don't really like it. I think I gravitate more towards the American free market. Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell, Mises, Ludwig von Mises, Murray Rothbard, that kind of approach. Freedom, libertarianism, leave people alone, let the market do what governments just possibly can't do. So yeah, it's a big subject, but we'll see what happens to Bitcoin, we'll see what happens to the dollar, and we'll see what happens to markets. I suspect in the next 12 months, there's going to be a lot of people out there who thought they were sitting on vast wealth in stocks and shares, who won't be ready for this. And when the stock markets collapse, they're going to be surprised that their retirement isn't as secure as they thought, and they're probably going to have to go out and start working again, which is a shame. But yeah, if you'd saved up your money in something that the government can't print, then you would have been in a better position. So yeah, that's my thought for the day. Hope you're enjoying May. It's beautiful, beautiful weather. Everything's so green and lush. I love it. Middle 2 weeks of May. It doesn't get finer in England. Cheers.